Hello. I'm gonna wait an extra minute or two, see if anybody else comes in before I start the introduction and the instructions. So yeah, I'll start in just a minute or two. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the introduction and instructions. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Howard. In case those of you who don't know me, I'll be leading these live stream meditations for the foreseeable future. The schedule might change, but I'll let you know on Facebook and YouTube if that happens. Um, I'll be offering the same introduction and instructions each time, maybe slightly modified just to update it, just to update on things prior to the hour marker before when we formally start meditation. So you can always check back in 15 minutes prior if you want a refresher for any instructions. If you have any questions on the way, you can feel free to ask in the chat. I'll see if I can get to that before we begin. Otherwise, I'll try to get to that by the end of this stream. So we can think of meditation and mindfulness as two different things. Meditation is a bigger and wider category of spiritual practices that include the practice of the technique of mindfulness. So, mindfulness is the practice of non judgmental awareness to whatever comes up and whatever goes away in a given moment. It's about paying attention very intentionally to what is happening right now, but without grasping, holding on to, or attaching to anything that comes up. So this practice involves focusing, noticing, and returning. Focusing on what's going on right here, right now, in the present moment. Noticing when our attention is straight away from the stream of experience and coming back, returning to what is happening right here, right now. The point isn't to find eternal calmness or relaxation. You know, stuff is going to come up. You're never going to get to the point where you won't feel any of the bad things. But the idea is to cultivate a steady core no matter what the experience is. So if you experience distress, you're not doing it wrong or anything like that. It's just a natural response. And how that distress is managed is going to differ from person to person. So let's go over some quick instructions. Um, in the Zen tradition, we place a lot of emphasis on posture. And sorry, and I not sick. Thankfully, I just have a little stuff in my throat. As you'll notice, I'm sitting in a formal position on a mat and cushion. If you're interested in doing this, here are some important points to remember. Sit comfortably and straight with your base, so base on the cushion toward the front half or front third. Sit so your legs are placed one in front of the other. This is the Burmese position. If you're flexible and you want to give it a shot, you can try a quarter, which is 1 foot on the calf. You can try half, which is 1 foot on the other thigh. I can't really manage that these days. Or full lotus, which puts the other foot on top of that thigh. If you're new to this, it's easier to just stick with Burmese. Open up the palm of your right hand and face it up. Left hand, place it in there, palm face up, thumbs lightly touching, resting at the navel area. So you don't want to be pressing your thumbs together really tightly or anything like that. You just want to have it lightly rest. You want to have your hands lightly resting and your thumbs lightly touching. So your elbows are going to be about a fist's distance away from your sides. Nothing, you don't have to be too rigid or anything like that. We just don't want you to be stuck out like this or like curled in all the way or anything like that. So to straighten your back, imagine there's a string pulling up at the top of your head, from the top of your head. Not super, super tight, but just enough to straighten that string that goes up through your spine. Your neck's going to be straight, your chin pulled in just slightly, and your eyes are going to be half open with a soft gaze about 45 degrees in front of you. You can close your eyes if you want, but it is easier to stay awake and to be mindful if you're aware of what's in your surroundings. You also have the option of sitting what's called seiza. The only real difference is that you'll be kneeling. Everything else pretty much stays the same. You'll be kneeling on a cushion instead. If you're sitting in a chair, again, pretty much everything else is the same. Just keep your feet flat on the floor. So let's talk about what to do with the mind, and that means we'll be talking about the breath as well. We'll be using the breath as an anchor for our mindfulness practice. There are many objects we can use, but the breath is one that is readily available to us. It's always changing, and it connects us to our body immediately. Pay attention to your inhalations and your exhalations. Notice what it feels like through different parts of your body when you breathe in, how it feels like when it's entering just past your upper lip, through your nostrils, up the nasal passage, through the head, down the throat, as it expands the chest and the abdomen. And notice what it feels like when the different parts of the body when you breathe out in the reverse. So you don't need to breathe in any special or particular kind of way, just breathe naturally. There's no need to force your breath to be any particular kind of way. You don't have to breathe super deeply. You don't have to breathe super short. But it is important to be mindful of exactly how it is you are breathing, because how you breathe does sometimes affect your mood. It can affect how it feels in your body. So if you're breathing really really short breaths really really fast, that can affect how you are on the cushion. So when you do the exhalations and the inhalations and exhalations, count up to 10, one for each completed cycle of inhalation and exhalation. If you lose count, go back to one. Um, if you lose count at one, go back to one. I've done that plenty of times. If you go up to 47, I've gone up to 47 before. Uh, go back to one when you come back. There's no doing this right or wrong. The point is to be mindful, to notice when we're not being mindful, and to come back to the practice of mindfulness moment to moment. So you might be wondering, what about my thoughts? Are thoughts going to come, and they might distract me? So thoughts are going to come, they're going to go, they're natural. They're like clouds floating across the sky. They're like waves in an ocean. Trying to stop your thoughts from happening is like trying to stop time. You're not going to, you won't ever, and you're going to strain yourself trying to do so. The point more so is to learn how to be mindful of what, how, and when thoughts arise and go away. The relationship of those thoughts to how things feel in the body, the emotions that come up for us, the ways that we think we want to or don't want to act, and to cultivate that steady core of simply being present to the patterns and the processes that shape our perceptions. So I want to make a note about discomfort. This is something that's really important to me because I don't see this mentioned enough in mindfulness instructions, and I think it's a really, really, really crucial point. If at any time you are uncomfortable, you are free to discontinue. Meditation and mindfulness can indeed bring up some trauma or trauma adjacent experiences. So if you find during practice that you're feeling hyper aroused or hypo aroused, so like you're feeling super hyper vigilant or super anxious, and you're totally unable to settle, or you're feeling really numb, listless, or foggy, feel free to disengage and utilize whatever methods you have to stabilize yourself and to create a sense of safety in your environment. So you can try, for example, the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Find your window of tolerance and practice within it. Meditative practice can be emotionally cathartic. It can bring up a lot of discomfort, and some of that discomfort, even a lot of that discomfort, is really important to work through and to sit through. Um, but it doesn't have to be re-traumatizing, and those are two different things. Working through your discomfort and re-traumatizing yourself are not the same thing. This practice is about non-judgmental awareness of the present moment, and this includes awareness of what we realistically and unrealistically expect of ourselves and what we do in our daily lives. So that's mostly the instructions. These are just kind of reminders. Even people who are experienced with this technique are going to fall asleep. They're going to have a hard time on the cushion. They're going to wonder if they're doing it right. Their bodies are going to ache. Their legs going to fall asleep. My leg falls asleep pretty regularly. That changed over time. For a long time, I used to my legs would fall asleep, and then for a long time it didn't. Now they're back to falling asleep again. I don't know why. Um, I feel bored plenty of the time. Um, you'll feel like your practice is inconsistent. All that, like, it's all perfectly natural. It's all part of the process. It's all okay. It's more about when that stuff comes up for you on the cushion and as well as off the cushion, how you work with that when that comes up. So remember that mindfulness meditation is simple, but it's not always easy. Um, and I want to say really quick, we're going to do a 30-minute meditation. You don't need to feel obliged to stay around for the entire 30 minutes of it. We'll be doing a short reading afterward and ending with vows. Um, but, on a day-to-day basis, it's important to, cultivate this as a daily habit, but it doesn't have to be 30 minutes a day. It can be 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Even if it's 5 to 10 minutes every day, that's a lot more than probably what you were doing before. The really important part is a daily habit of practicing it and having a space in which you can really just have a designated space to practice mindfulness and uh, pay attention for that moment without having anything else going on. Um, that said, it's also really important to practice like micro moments of mindfulness. So something I mentioned in my last video that I decided to start incorporating is that we're all thinking about not touching our faces. We're all thinking about, our exposure to the outside and being around other people and washing our hands and all that stuff. Um, Aside from just practicing, generally good hygiene, um, notice what it feels like to not to not touch your face. Notice what it feels like to have an itch on the face. That's a small moment of mindfulness that you can practice. Notice what it feels like to wash your hands for 20 seconds. Notice like the physical sensations of it. Notice the temperature of the water. Notice if there are other sounds going on in the apartment or house or wherever it is that you're at when you're washing your hands. Notice what it feels like emotionally and in the body when you have to stand there for 20 seconds. You're like, I feel like I've done this for longer than 20 seconds. I'm not sure. The short version being there's every moment you have a chance to practice mindfulness. And it's an opportunity to practice mindfulness. And that's a great way to take opportunity of that. So that's it. That's all the instructions. Since we're about a minute away from the starting time, I'll give us an extra minute or two in case you want to do anything like settle down, adjust, grab something to drink. Please feel free to do so. Please remember that the meditation will be silent. So if you want to put some music on or anything like that that helps you meditate, please feel free to do so. I'm not going to hear that anyway. I just wanted to make sure I hold the space for people who want to do some meditation in a group. I'm gonna get myself some water, so I'll be back in a minute or two, and then we'll ring the bell to signal the start of the session, and I'll ring the bell afterward to end the session when we'll do a short reading and vows. All right. I'll be starting the meditation now. Thanks everybody for your effort. I'm going to read once again from Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. When we sit down to meditate, we can connect with something unconditional. A state of mind, a basic environment that does not grasp or reject anything. Meditation is probably the only activity that doesn't add anything to the picture. Everything is allowed to come and go without further embellishment. Meditation is a totally non-violent, non-aggressive occupation, not filling the space, allowing for the possibility of connecting with unconditional openness. This provides the basis for real change. You might say this is setting ourselves a task that is almost impossible. Maybe that is true. But on the other hand, the more we sit with this impossibility, the more we find it's always possible after all. When we cling to thoughts and memories, we are clinging to what cannot be grasped. When we touch these phantoms and let them go, we may discover a space, a break in the chatter, a glimpse of open sky. This is our birthright, the wisdom with which we were born, the vast unfolding display of primordial richness, primordial openness, primordial wisdom itself. All that is necessary then is to rest undistractedly in the immediate present, in this very instant in time. And if we become drawn away by thoughts, by longings, by hopes and fears, again and again we can return to this present moment. We are here. We are carried off as if by the wind, and as if by the wind we are brought back. When one thought has ended and another has not begun, we can rest in that space. We train in returning to the unchanging heart of this very moment. All compassion and all inspiration come from that. Thank you all for joining me tonight. There might be a possible schedule change, and this is something I'll announce. My Zen group, Hyde Park Zen, which is an affiliate of Ancient Dragon Zen Gate, may be trying to move meditation Wednesday afternoons to 4:30. In which case, I might cut this one out, but I will let everybody know if and when that happens. So now we're going to end with the chanting of the 4 great Bodhisattva vows, which you can find in the description below. We will chant the monotone 3 times. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Good night.